The first thing I noticed when I opened the front door was the smell. It wasn't the smell of home. It wasn't the smell of old books and lemon polish that Sarah and I had cultivated for 15 years. It was the smell of bleach. Sharp, chemical, and aggressive. It was the smell of a crime scene being scrubbed. I stood in the entryway, my hand trembling as I gripped the brass handle of my cane. My chest felt like it was wrapped in barbed wire. That's what they don't tell you about open-heart surgery. They tell you about the survival rates. They tell you about the diet changes. They don't tell you that for 6 weeks, every breath feels like your sternum is trying to rip itself apart. I took a shallow breath. I closed the door behind me. "Hello," I called out. My voice was weak, raspy. The tube they had shoved down my throat for 3 days had left my vocal cords sounding like sandpaper. Silence. I shuffled forward. The house felt different. Hollow. The acoustics were wrong. I looked into the living room and realized why. The rugs were gone. The Persian runner Sarah had bought in Istanbul gone. The 65-inch television I bought for the Super Bowl gone. The crystal vase that usually sat on the mantel gone. My heart gave a painful thud against my ribs. A dangerous thud. The doctor had said, "No stress, Arthur. Keep your blood pressure down." I ignored him. I walked, slowly, painfully, toward the master bedroom. I didn't care about the TV. I didn't care about the rugs. Those were things. Things can be replaced. I was a structural engineer for 40 years. I know that if the foundation is solid, you can always rebuild the walls. But there was one part of the foundation that couldn't be replaced. I pushed open the bedroom door. The mattress was stripped bare. The closet doors were flung open. Sarah's clothes, which I had kept for 2 years because I couldn't bear to pack them away, were gone. The hangers were empty, rattling in the draft from the HVAC vent. But my eyes went straight to the painting of the lighthouse on the far wall. It was crooked. My stomach dropped. I walked over to it. I moved the frame aside. The wall safe was open. It hadn't been cracked. There were no drill marks. No prime marks. The keypad was intact. Someone had typed in the code. 0-6-1-4. Sarah's birthday. I looked inside. It was a void. The emergency cash envelope. $10,000 in hundreds gone. The bonds gone. My grandfather's gold pocket watch gone. And, in the back corner, the velvet box. The box that held Sarah's diamond wedding ring and the sapphire necklace she wore on our anniversary. I reached in. My fingers brushed the velvet. I opened it. Empty. I stared at the empty black foam. I felt a coldness spread through my body that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. It was the coldness of absolute betrayal. They didn't think I was coming back. That was the only explanation. I had gone into the hospital for a quadruple bypass. It was a high-risk procedure for a man of 72. There were complications. I had coded on the table once. I spent 4 days in a medically induced coma. For 4 days, the world thought Arthur Vance was dead. And in those 4 days, Gavin and Chloe, my stepchildren, the people I had promised Sarah I would look after, hadn't been praying by my bedside. They hadn't been holding my hand. They had been here, punching in their dead mother's birthday into my safe. "Arthur," the voice came from the hallway behind me. It was casual, surprised but not scared. I turned around slowly. The turn pulled at my stitches. I gritted my teeth. Gavin was standing in the doorway. He was 35 years old, but he was wearing a graphic t-shirt and cargo shorts like a teenager. He was holding a half-eaten apple. "My apple." "Gavin," I said. "Whoa," he said, taking a bite of the apple. "We didn't think you were getting discharged until Friday." "Chloe, the old man is back." He didn't ask how I was. He didn't offer to help me sit down. He looked at me with the annoyance of a tenant whose landlord has shown up for an unannounced inspection. Chloe appeared behind him. She was dressed in a sharp blazer and designer jeans. Clothes she had bought with money she borrowed from me and never paid back. "Arthur," she said, her eyes scanning the room, landing on the open safe. She didn't flinch. "You look terrible. Where is it?" I asked. I pointed to the safe with my cane. Gavin shrugged. "Where is what?" "The junk." "My wife's jewelry," I said. "My money. My watch." "We put it in storage," Chloe said quickly, smoothly. She was the liar of the family. Gavin was the brute. Chloe was the snake. "For safekeeping. We heard there were break-ins in the neighborhood." We didn't want the house to be a target while it was empty. Empty, I repeated. I was in the hospital for a week. Not a year. Gavin said, leaning against the door frame, blocking my exit. The doctors said it was 50-50, Art. We had to be pragmatic. We started liquidating to cover the medical bills. My insurance covers the medical bills, I said. And you don't liquidate a wedding ring to pay a copay. Gavin laughed. It was a cruel, wet sound. Look, don't get worked up. It's bad for your ticker. The stuff is gone, okay? We needed the cash. Legal fees. Legal fees for what? Chloe stepped forward. She pulled a manila envelope from her oversized purse. She held it out to me. For the probate, she said. We spoke to a lawyer, Arthur. Since Mom passed, and now that you're incapacitated, we're taking over the estate. We're the biological heirs. This house, it's too much for you. We're listing it on Monday. I looked at the envelope. I didn't take it. You're listing my house, I stated. Mom's house, Gavin corrected. She bought the curtains, didn't she? They were smiling. It was a subtle, predatory smile. They looked at me, a gray-faced old man leaning on a cane, barely able to stand, and they saw a victory lap. They thought I was too weak to fight. They thought this stepdad was just a placeholder who had finally expired. I looked at Gavin. I looked at Chloe. I thought about the promise I made to Sarah on her deathbed. Promise me you won't let them starve, Arthur. They're not bad. They're just lost. I looked at the empty safe. They weren't lost. They were right here. And they weren't starving. They were feasting. Get out, I whispered. We live here now, Arthur, Gavin said, stepping into the room. He loomed over me. We moved in while you were sleeping, to take care of the place. So, actually, you're the guest. He took another bite of the apple. Go rest, Chloe said, patting my arm patronizingly. We'll handle the movers. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I couldn't. If I yelled, my chest would burst. So I did what I have always done. I analyzed the load. I calculated the stress points. And I realized that if I fought them physically, I would lose. I needed a lever. Okay, I said softly. Okay, I'm tired. I'm going to the study. Sure, Gavin said, stepping aside. Go nap, old man. I walked past them. I heard them snickering as I went down the hall. I went into my study. It was the one room they hadn't touched yet, probably because it was full of boring engineering manuals and blueprints instead of electronics. I closed the door. I locked it. I sat down in my leather chair and let out a long, ragged breath. I closed my eyes and waited for the pain to subside. Then I opened my eyes. I reached for the bookshelf behind me. I pulled out a thick volume, Advanced Structural Dynamics, 1988 edition. I opened the book. The pages had been hollowed out years ago. Inside was a red file folder. I placed it on the desk. I opened it. Inside was a document stamped with the county clerk's seal, dated 10 years ago. Deed of life estate. Grantor, Arthur Vance. Grantee, Arthur Vance, life tenant. Remainder man, Sarah Vance, deceased, passing to heirs per stirpes. I ran my finger over the legal text. Most people don't understand how a life estate works. Gavin and Chloe certainly didn't. They thought inheritance meant mine. They didn't understand that a life tenant owns the property completely, exclusively, and absolutely until the moment their heart stops beating. They couldn't sell it. They couldn't list it. They couldn't even enter it without my permission. Technically, they were trespassing, but they had done more than trespass. They had opened my safe. They had taken items that didn't belong to the house, items that were personal property. I picked up my phone. I dialed a number. Not the police. Not yet. I dialed a man named Sal. Sal was a private investigator I had used back when I ran my engineering firm, mostly for background checks on contractors. He was expensive, discreet, and very good at finding things that had been liquidated. Sal, I said when he picked up, it's Arthur Vance. Arthur, I heard you were in the hospital. You okay? I'm alive, I said. Sal, I need you to find some jewelry. Vintage, diamond solitaire, platinum band, sapphire pendant, and a Patek Philippe pocket watch. Stolen, Sal asked. Family dispute, I said. Check the pawn shops within a 10-mile radius of my house. Look for tickets signed by Gavin Miller or Chloe Miller. I'm on it, Sal said. Give me 24 hours. You have 12, I said. And Sal? I need the receipts. I hung up. I looked at the red folder. Then I looked at the eviction notice Chloe had tried to give me. They wanted a war. They wanted to push the old man out into the snow so they could cash out and buy sports cars. They forgot one thing. I built this house. I designed the framing. I poured the foundation. And I knew exactly how to bring the roof down on their heads. Living with the enemy is a unique form of torture. It requires a level of acting I didn't know I possessed. For the next 5 days, I played the part of the dying invalid perfectly. I spent most of my time in the study or the guest bedroom, since they had taken over the master suite. I walked with exaggerated stoop. I let my hands shake when I held a cup of tea. I asked them to repeat things, pretending my hearing was going. I watched them. I watched Gavin drinking my scotch at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. I watched Chloe on the phone with real estate agents, using words like urgent sale and cash offers only. They were desperate. That was the key takeaway. They weren't just greedy, they were broke. I overheard Gavin arguing with a bookie on the back patio. I heard Chloe crying about a maxed-out credit card. They needed the house sale to clear their debts. They were banking everything on my death or my submission. But while they were planning their future, I was documenting their present. On the second day, while they were out getting lunch, using my emergency cash, no doubt, I installed the cameras. I had a box of old nanny cams from when Sarah was alive. We used to use them to watch the dog. I set one up in the living room, hidden behind a stack of books. One in the kitchen, on top of the fridge. One in the hallway, pointing at the study door. I synced them to my phone. Then, I waited for the confession. It came on Wednesday night. I was in the guest room, sleeping. In reality, I was watching the live feed on my iPad with earbuds in. Gavin and Chloe were in the living room. They were drinking wine. My wine. A 2010 Bordeaux I had been saving for my 75th birthday. The agent said we can list it for $850,000, Chloe said, swirling the glass. If we drop the price to $750,000 for a quick sale, we walk away with what? $350 each. Minus taxes, Gavin grunted. But yeah, enough to get the guys off my back. What about the old man? Chloe asked. He's still here. The agent said we can't show the house if there's a squatter. He's not a squatter, he's a vegetable, Gavin laughed. I told him he has to be out by Monday. He bought it. Did you see him shaking? He's terrified. I bet he checks himself into a home just to get away from us. And the jewelry? Chloe asked. Her voice dropped. Did you get the rest of the cash from the pawn guy? I turned the volume up on my iPad. Yeah, Gavin said. Got another $5,000 for the watch. The guy asked for provenance papers, but I told him it was an inheritance and I lost the box. He didn't care. Cash in hand. Good, Chloe sighed. That covers the credit card. God, Mom had so much stuff. Why did you keep it all locked up? Because she was married to a miser, Gavin sneered. Arthur sat on a gold mine and made us live like peasants. It's our turn now. I paused the video. I saved the clip. I backed it up to the cloud. Provenance papers. Inheritance. Miser. They had just admitted to selling the items. Knowing the items were locked up. Burglary. Lying to the pawnbroker. Fraud. Conspiring to evict a legal resident. I took the earbuds out. I looked at the screen. My face was reflected in the dark glass. I didn't look like a miser. I looked like a man who had just loaded a shotgun. The next morning, Thursday, my phone rang. It was Sal. Goddamn, Sal said. His voice was gravelly. Goldman's Pawn on 4th Street. In quick cash on Main. I got copies of the transaction slips. Signed by Gavin Miller. Thumbprint and ID on file. Did you get the items back? I asked. I put a police hold on them, Sal said. They can't be sold. But to get them back, you need to file a report. You need to pull the trigger, Arthur. Not yet, I said. Bring the receipts to me. Tonight. Park down the street. I'll meet you at the corner. You sure about this, Art? These are your kids. Sort of. No, Sal, I said, watching Gavin on the kitchen camera as he rummaged through my fridge. They aren't my kids. They're just the people who broke into my house. Friday. The deadline. Gavin had told me I needed to be packed and ready by noon on Friday because the photographer was coming to take pictures for the listing. At 11 a.m., I showered. I shaved. I put on a clean shirt. I didn't pack a single box. I walked into the living room. Gavin was moving furniture around. He was sweating. He looked manic. Chloe was arranging flowers on the coffee table. "What you doing?" Gavin barked when he saw me. "Where are your boxes?" "The photographer is here in an hour." "I'm not going anywhere, Gavin," I said. I didn't use the cane this time. I stood straight. The pain was still there, but I pushed it down. "Excuse me." Chloe turned around. Her eyes narrowed. "We discussed this. You can't stay here. This isn't your house anymore." "Actually," I said, walking over to the coffee table. I picked up the eviction notice they had given me and ripped it in half. "It is." "You're senile," Gavin spat. "Mom left this house to us. It's in the will." "The will handles the remainder," I said calmly. "But the deed handles the ownership, and the deed is a life estate." I tossed the red folder onto the table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped in front of Chloe. "Read it," I said. Chloe opened the folder. She read the first page. She frowned. "Life tenant, sole right of possession, specifically reserving the power to sell, mortgage, or lease." She looked up. Her face was pale. "This says you own it until you die." "Correct," I said. "And since I'm very much alive, despite your best efforts to stress me into a grave, this is my house. You have zero authority here. You're guests, and your invitation has just been revoked." Gavin snatched the paper. "This is bullshit. It's a fake. It's filed with the county," I said. "Check the clerk's website." "But that's not the problem you should be worried about." "What are you talking about?" Gavin stepped toward me, his fists clenched. "Listen here, old man, I'm not playing games. We need this sale. If you try to block us, you'll what?" I interrupted. "Hit me? Please do. I'm recovering from heart surgery. One punch, and it's felony assault." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a stack of paper slips. The pawn receipts Sal had given me. I fanned them out like a winning poker hand. Goldman's pawn. Item, platinum diamond ring. Seller, Gavin Miller. Price, $2,500. Gavin stopped. He froze mid-step. Quick cash. Item, Patek Philippe watch. Seller, Gavin Miller. Price, $1,200. I dropped the receipts onto the table next to the deed. "That watch was worth $10,000, you idiot," I said, my voice dropping to a growl. "You sold it for scrap." Chloe let out a strangled sound. She looked at Gavin. "You said you got $5,000. "Shut up, Chloe," Gavin screamed. He looked at me, panic rising in his eyes. "You can't prove we took them. You gave them to us. You told us to sell them to pay the bills." I picked up the remote control for the TV. "I thought you might say that," I said. I pressed play. On a 65-inch screen, which was missing, so I had to use the smaller TV they had dragged in from the bedroom. The video from Wednesday night appeared. Gavin's voice boomed. "The old man is a vegetable. I told the pawn guy it was an inheritance. We cleaned him out." The silence in the room was absolute. Gavin stared at the screen. His mouth hung open. Chloe looked like she was going to faint. "That's..." Gavin stammered. "That's illegal. You can't record us. In this state, inside my own home." I said, "Yes, I can. It's called security." I checked my watch. Not the gold one. That was in a police locker. My cheap digital one. "It's 11:15, I said. "I called the sheriff at 11 o'clock. He should be pulling into the driveway right about now." As if on cue, the heavy thud of a car, door closing echoed from outside. Then the doorbell rang. Gavin looked at the door. He looked at the back window. He looked at me. "Arthur," Chloe said, her voice trembling, tears suddenly streaming down her face. "Arthur, please. We're family. Mom wouldn't want this. We could put the money back. We can work this out. Mom wouldn't want you to steal her wedding ring," I said coldly. "And you're right. You are family, which makes it so much worse." The doorbell rang again. "Louder. Open it," I commanded. Gavin didn't move. He was paralyzed. I walked to the door. I opened it. Sheriff Miller, no relation to them, stood there, a grim look on his face. Two deputies were behind him. "Mr. Vance?" the sheriff asked. "Come in, Sheriff," I said, stepping aside. "The trespassers are in the living room, and I believe you have a warrant for grand larceny." I turned back to look at them. Gavin was sinking onto the sofa. Chloe was sobbing into her hands. The vultures had landed, but they forgot that the carcass wasn't dead yet. And now, the trap was snapped shut. The sound of handcuffs ratcheting shut is distinct. It's a mechanical, final sound, like a lock clicking into place on a cage. Gavin Miller, the sheriff, said, his voice flat and professional. You are under arrest for grand larceny, burglary in the second degree, and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent. Gavin didn't remain silent. He started screaming. This is a mistake. It's a misunderstanding. It's a civil matter. Mom left us the stuff. He twisted his shoulders, tried to pull away from the deputy, but the deputy just shoved him harder against the wall. The stuff isn't the problem, son, the sheriff said, tightening the cuffs. The problem is you broke into a safe and sold 20 grand worth of property that wasn't yours to a pawn shop. That's a felony. And doing it to a man recovering from heart surgery? That's an aggravating factor. The DA isn't going to like that. I watched from the doorway. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just stood there, leaning on my cane, watching the inevitable result of their choices. Chloe was next. She wasn't screaming. She was hyperventilating. Arthur, she gasped as the second deputy pulled her arms back. Arthur, please. Don't let them take me. I didn't sell anything. It was Gavin. I just drove the car. You're an accomplice, Miss Miller, the deputy said. We have you on video conspiring to hide the assets. Arthur, she shrieked. We're family. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the girl I had paid tuition for. I saw the woman whose car insurance I had covered when she got her DUI 3 years ago. I saw the leech that had been draining Sarah dry for a decade. No, I said softly. You're not family. You're defendants. They marched them out. It was a beautiful spring day. The neighbors were out. Mrs. Higgins across the street was watering her petunias. She stopped, hose in hand, watching as Gavin and Chloe, the two people who had strutted around the neighborhood like they owned the block for the last week, were shoved into the back of 2 separate patrol cars. Gavin tried to duck his head to hide his face, but it was too late. Everyone saw. The sheriff turned to me on the porch. He tipped his hat. We'll need you down at the station to sign the formal complaints, Mr. Vance. Whenever you're feeling up to it. I'll be there in an hour, Sheriff, I said. I just need to make a pot of tea. Take your time, he said. They aren't going anywhere. He got in his car. The lights flashed, blue and red, reflecting off the windows of the house I built. The siren chirped once, and they were gone. I went back inside. The house was quiet. The smell of bleach was still there, but underneath it, I could smell the faintest hint of victory. I walked to the coffee table. I picked up the red folder, the life estate deed. They had thought this piece of paper was a technicality. They didn't realize it was a weapon. See, there's a little-known legal doctrine in many states. It's often called the Slayer statute, usually reserved for people who kill someone to get an inheritance. But there are civil equivalents for waste and abuse. By stealing from the property, by damaging the estate, and by committing a felony against the life tenant, Gavin and Chloe had just handed me the ammunition to file a civil suit to extinguish their remainder interest. I wasn't just sending them to jail. I was going to sue them for the value of the stolen goods, the emotional distress, and the legal fees. And since they had no money, the judge would likely place a lien against their future interest in the house. In simple terms, they just stole $50,000 worth of jewelry, and it was going to cost them an $800,000 inheritance. I sat down in my armchair. My chest hurt, but it was a healing pain now. I picked up the phone. I dialed my lawyer. Hello, Jim, I said. You can stop the eviction defense. We're going on the offense. Draft a complaint for civil damages and, call the locksmith. I need to change the tumblers. 6 months later, the hydrangeas in the front yard are in full bloom. They are blue and purple, heavy with petals. Sarah loved hydrangeas. I am sitting on the porch swing. My scar has healed to a thin white line. My heart is pumping strong, regular, and rhythmic. The house is restored. The Persian rugs are back. I had to buy new ones, but they look good. The 65-inch TV is back on the wall. The safe is repaired and has a new biometric lock. Gavin and Chloe are currently residents of the state correctional system. Gavin took a plea deal for 3 years. Burglary and grand larceny. He tried to argue he had permission, but the video footage of him calling me a vegetable and laughing about the theft destroyed his credibility. Chloe got 18 months as an accomplice. She lost her job, her apartment, and her dignity. But the real kicker came in civil court. My lawyer, Jim, argued that their actions constituted active waste of the estate and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The judge agreed to pay the judgment of $150,000, which included punitive damages. They had to sign over their remainder interest in the house to me. I now own the property in fee simple absolute. When I die, it won't go to them. It will go to the Heart Association and a scholarship fund for engineering students. As for the jewelry, Sal recovered most of it. The police returned the ring and the watch. I held Sarah's diamond ring in my hand for a long time the night I got it back. It felt heavy. It carried too many memories, and now it carried the taint of Gavin's greed. I didn't keep it. I didn't put it back in the safe. I took it to a jeweler. I had the gold melted down. I had the diamond sold. I took the check, $12,000, and I walked into the pediatric ward of the hospital that saved my life. I handed it to the head nurse. For the families who can't pay the copay, I told her. She cried. I didn't. I walked out of that hospital and took a deep breath of fresh air. There's a lesson here, a hard one. We are taught that blood is thicker than water. We are taught that family is unconditional. But family isn't just DNA. Family is behavior. Family is respect. Gavin and Chloe thought that sharing Sarah's blood gave them the right to pick my bones. They thought that because I was old and sick and just a stepdad, I was weak. They confused silence for weakness. They confused patience for surrender. They forgot that you don't become an old man in a tough world by being stupid. You do it by being prepared. They wanted the quick cash. They wanted the easy score. Instead, they got exactly what they deserved. They got the house in prison, and I got the peace and quiet I was promised. This is Dante. Check your deeds. Check your locks. And never assume the old lion is asleep just because his eyes are closed.